After travelling back through Turkey, it was now time to depart by boat to the island of Chios, where I was hoping to connect with a refugee camp at one of the first entry points to the EU. Okay, so I've just got out of the police station in Chios. I got here and I've been trying to connect with the refugee camp, but it's a closed refugee camp, so I'm not able to visit this evening. But I spoke to a very scary looking plainclothes police person in the police station here, and he was very kind actually, and he did tell me a bit of information which I'm just gonna tell you now what I remember. Basically there's a camp in Vial, which is a little bit outside of the city, and they don't it's obviously a very sensitive issue with the issue of migration, and so they don't let any kind of religious groups visit or get involved there, although some of them do organise locally to try to help, but they were saying because of the different religions of people that are in the camp, they don't officially let anybody visit. So it is a closed camp, but they have to strike a difficult balance between keeping the people on the island safe and providing for those refugees. So yeah, they did take down a lot of my details, a copy of my passport, wanted to know where I was going and how long I was staying and all that kind of thing. So but yeah, it's fine. So I'm just going to go about my business now and have a relaxing evening. So I shall check in with you later. Hi, so I'm here with Mubarak. As you know, I couldn't visit the camp earlier today, but Mubarak is here. He is a refugee. Sadly, my filming was interrupted, but Mubarak had just been granted asylum. He just got his ID papers, and I was able to give him one of my postcards as the first thing that he'd received, having his new sense of freedom, beginning his new life in Athens. Great. Well, we managed to survive the rains yesterday by making an early start. That was definitely a good move. So we're out again. This is our, second to last leg?
Penultimate day.
Yeah. Penultimate walking day. So it was quite tough, quite a challenging day yesterday. And but one of the really interesting things was the place where we ended up. We got to spend a bit more time in because we'd left early. We had an afternoon, and particularly got the opportunity to spend a long time chatting to the B&B owner, and got more of a flavour for the town that we were staying in. So I think one of the interesting things was there seems to be, in this particular town, we noticed sort of some similarities to kind of what we experience in our own setting, which is a disparity between the wealthy and those who don't have as much. But it does seem like that divide was quite pronounced, and just because somewhere is leafy and cozy doesn't necessarily mean it doesn't have sort of social problems beneath it. So that was quite interesting. It was quite interesting visiting the parish church as well, and just having a look at their setup, how they operate, and how I guess the change that is experienced across the country, really, in the centricity of the parish church being less of a focal point, and even in the sort of small rural communities where that perhaps has been the centre of community and shaping life there. Perhaps it's got a smaller role to play, and so that's been quite interesting as well. But I don't know, Stu, if there's any reflections you've had as well.
So one of the interesting things about yesterday is we set off at 6, and then by about 6:30 we found ourselves being passed by ultra runners.
Oh yeah.
Basically were running the whole St Cuthbert's Way in a day or so. So they'd set off at midnight and done all we'd done so far, and still a way to go to Lindisfarne. And I guess, I have some limited experience of that sort of thing, but one of the things that made me appreciate is that there are always different ways of doing the same journey, and their experience would have been massively different to ours. We felt a little bit of pain along the ways, a bit of stiffness and stuff at times, but for them the physical effort would have been huge, and maybe their appreciation of the journey would have been different but for them, the sense of joy when they get there may well be similar to what we might experience in a different way.
Well, it might be, and I think that's the. But again, it was that interesting thing of doing the same journey in a different mode and in a different way, encountering that and having that experience in a very different way.
The other thing you were talking about, James, is we had a couple of moments yesterday as we crossed the border, and then later on in our walk where...
Was that only yesterday?
That was only yesterday,
Wow.
when it was something quite rare for us to experience as Londoners.
Yeah, there's a few points yesterday where we're in such a remote region between towns that there was zero detectable sound. And actually the very heights of the hills, not even any creatures nearby. The only sound was the sound of the wind and the sound of your own feet treading on the grass. And once we stood still just for a minute, there was just this moment of indecipherable silence that was total and absolute. Again, quite profound. Right, well, we've just made it to St Cuthbert's Cave, which is just here behind me. This is the place of legend that apparently housed Cuthbert's body to avoid it being sacked by Vikings, who no doubt were, I don't know why they wanted his dead body really. Symbolic, yeah, crush our morale, something like that. Well, anyway, his body's not here now, but it's fascinating to be at a location that's directly connected with that history, and whilst the whole path is really, but this kind of has somewhat greater significance. So anyway, we've been joined by some other pilgrims on the way, so this is just a quick hi and hello. Okay, this is just for the logs in case we get mauled or destroyed. We're about to enter a field that says there's a bull in it. Here we go. The next stop on my journey was Athens. Here I would meet my friend Stuart Smith for a few days of rest and relaxation, and also the first chance to begin to process some of what the journey had offered me so far. But before doing that, I had a very special stop to make. This is Hamed. He was one of the first Farsi speakers to join our church, and when he was baptised, he shared with me that in Athens, a group of Christians cared for him and showed him kindness. When did you discover Jesus as your saviour?
امروز خیلی بزرگیه که من تو این روز دارم بپتیس میشم. ممنونم. خدا رو شکر میکنم.
He said 2 years ago when I was in Greek, when I was a refugee there, and I see the church help people, and that's why I believe Jesus.
This was his first encounter with the gospel. I wanted to find this group to encourage them, but also to learn from them. So with a bit of detective work, I made contact with Myra, who agreed to show me around the Father's Heart in Athens, a Swiss missionary group, and to introduce me to one of the founders, an 82-year-old German lady called Heidi. Hey, so I'm on my way to visit the centre in Athens that's been recommended to me by Hamed. I'm going to go meet some of the team there, see their centre, and we'll see what's happening. So it's a shared space,
yes,
and it's available different times of day for different things.
Yes, and while we share devotional,
Yes.
it's people coming from everywhere now. So here, these are books and Bibles that they can take home with
Yes.
them. So there's like Farsi, some in German, some Arabic, Greek.
Yes.
Many people from Greek are joining now.
Yeah.
We've had last week people from Palestine, Sudan,
Amazing.
Ukraine, and then from Russia, different parts. So even though it's a different language, but I think that every time they come here, they just feel that peace from the Lord.
Yeah.
And something just make them coming. Maybe it's the good food that it's served
Yeah.
in the kitchen.
Yeah.
But also we think it's the peace and the love of the Lord.
So you were explaining that you have daily devotionals with...
Yes, we start. Well,
Yes.
that's really the Canaries teach us, and it's so wonderful because we forget. No, we don't forget, but we we see the Word of God like a diamond with many, many facets.
Yes.
And because of our, the people who are taking part in, come from so many different cultures, there's always different facets that that brighten up, that we never thought about that.
And do you find that reconciliation is a big part of the ministry? And because there must be so much pain and hurt that you encounter from refugees.
The Talabani and the Barzani were fighting, but they are shooting each other. And now, here, they are brothers. And I mean, I, being a German, being here in Greece, there's still a lot of enmity.
So there's a depth of sacrifice that's involved.
Yeah, and it's not a sacrifice because you see the joy in the heart of the one who is given. Humility is humble yourself under the mighty hand of God, and then there's a present participle, by throwing all your problems at him. I have a conveyor belt. I needn't throw, I could just move this.
Brilliant.
Because there are so many problems, you just you would drown if you hear all this and take it to your heart.
That's it.
And if we talked about the character of God, you know, the glory of God.
Yes.
And the glory of God, I just took it away from my there. This is the glory of God.
Yes.
His name.
Yeah.
Yahweh. Yahweh. God. Merciful and gracious.
So the core value of what you're able to do in this place is to actively live out and demonstrate the character of God.
Yeah, when they see us, I mean, when they see into the eye, look at Beza's eyes, you see Jesus.
Yeah.
Abraham's eye, you see Jesus.
Yeah.
You see compassion. You see in suffering, they are suffering, but they see compassion with the suffering of others and forgetting their own sufferings. It's all gift, the goodness of God.
Yeah. All right, well, we have reached the causeway, and behind us you can see the kind of poles that mark the beginning of that causeway, and a little further behind me you can sort of, which way around is it? There we go.
Over there somewhere.
You should be able to see in the distance. Well, anyway, look, trust us, that's the island of Lindisfarne. Right. We can't cross at the moment because the tide is changing, so we're going to have to wait a little bit later, so it would be a good time to update you. It's just feelings of anticipation. Obviously we've come a fairly long way, and so this is sort of the culmination of that distance. So
I think yesterday was the first day where we got to actually glimpse the island from afar as we kind of came over the top of a hill.
Yeah.
And there was a sense of excitement and anticipation as we reached the end of the journey. And we had an interesting conversation because just before that moment we'd gone to St Cuthbert's Cave, where at some point they hid his body there when the Vikings were invading. We had an interesting conversation about place, James.
And I think something about theology of place and a sense that at which point does a space become spiritually significant, and because neither of us particularly felt any great spiritual connection to this vacant cave which various people had come and graffitied and wasn't really maintained and wasn't really a centre of Christian worship. It was just a fabled place. And I think, perhaps if I had more of a theology of that recognised the significance of a relic and maybe what a relic had touched and the presence of a relic, maybe that would have been more for me personally. But I didn't get a sense, just a spiritual sense of a depth of that place. And I guess my hope is that will change on coming to Lindisfarne itself, because perhaps something about a place is, people talk about thin places and places where it's easier to connect with God or closer to God, but I wonder how much of that is because of the prayerful practice of a persistent community, in terms of their practice of prayer daily. And so to actually visit a priory that is inhabited or does have a rhythm of prayer and worship that still surrounds it, which has been maintained for several hundred years, actually that I think would be what holds its spiritual proximity, maybe.
Yeah. I think that's been one of the interesting things about the pilgrimage itself, in that classically you anticipate certain moments on a pilgrimage where you are, hopefully in thin places.
Yeah.
But maybe just the nature of this one we've done, it just hasn't felt like that for me, if I'm honest. Where I've noticed sort of encounters with God, I guess in a couple of different ways. One is just in the natural beauty around us. I think in some of our conversations as we've chatted, and in the other as well, and people we've encountered along the way.
Yeah.
And we wouldn't have had those if we hadn't been on the pilgrimage.
Yeah.
I guess there's something about the way of life, the way of pilgrimage, which takes you into that space and you encounter God in there.
Yeah.
And that's been my experience anyway, much more than the places that we've visited or
I think
gone through.
One of the other things that we've noticed is the absence of spiritual curiosity, actually, from many of the people that we've encountered. So that was, I think, one of the things you commented on. Often people we have met, and you get to the point of explaining why you're doing what you're doing, or the fact that you are both vicars or whatever, and it doesn't really invite any follow-up question. In fact, if anything, it's just been yeah. So it hasn't been as easy, I think, to have spiritual conversations where we'd hope we might get more of those. And I guess that's been a difference perhaps between this journey and the journey I've taken across Europe, is that actually many of those conversations were, that's really interesting what you're doing. And the irony, I guess, is that we've come to a place which we supposed was renowned for spiritual journeys.
Yeah.
Which it is. But that seems to be less of a hallmark of what we've encountered. There are two paths to reach the island. The first is by road, and the second is only accessible by low tide and is known as the Pilgrim's Path. It's a path that we walk barefoot across the flats to reach our final destination. I had to change my travel plans at the last minute, which took me to Rome a bit earlier than expected, and it's just as well I did, because I was presented with the most amazing opportunity. Okay, so I'm here at St. Peter's Basilica, and there happens to be a service, I think to celebrate the Jubilee year of 2025 with the Pope, and I think I've blagged my way in. Well, as you can see behind me, St. Peter's Basilica, we've just had a service for the Catholic Church Jubilee year 2025, and the Pope gave an address, and it was primarily for those who were studying in the seminary here, and I got the privilege to visit as an ecumenical guest. What an incredible experience! Full of life and exuberance for their faith, and just to witness the new Pope as he addressed that group was pretty amazing. So there you go, what a great memory. Great, well, we've made it to Holy Island, to Lindisfarne, and behind us is the priory, or the remains of that priory. But I think one of the things that struck me was yesterday we got to the priory just in time for the church that's adjacent to it to be saying evening prayer. So we were able to sit and have evening prayer led for us, which was a real treat. And it sort of gave a conclusion point to the journey, and I think it's probably emphasised for me that sense of thin places being enhanced or at least opened up by a continued worshipping presence, and the importance for that in these sacred spaces, in order to keep them attuned to what they were consecrated for. And yeah, don't know about you, Stu, there's any other...
Maybe just slightly different for me. I was just thinking about the way that actually it felt like to me that the process, the journey of pilgrimage has actually created a thin space within me along the way.
Yeah.
And in a sense, meeting with God along the way in different ways. And two of the graces I really felt from yesterday as we walked the pilgrim's path, waded at times through water. One was just like that. It was almost like a healing impact of the soft, warm water on tired legs. It's over exaggerating, but it felt like a real gift in that moment.
No, I felt that as well. I got a sense of that.
It's the first time since I was a child, really, where I've felt mud squelch beneath my feet. And it felt like a little bit like being a child again.
Yeah.
And that sense of, as we come to the end here, it's almost like a beginning again of another journey as we go back home, back to some sort of normality, as it were. And again, just the sense of grace all around us and the people we've met along the way, and the privilege of having the time and the space to be able to do this. And yeah, it's been a real joy.
Amazing. So with the walking journey complete, my European journey is also drawing to a close. All that remains now is to go back, this time via Venice, Milan, and finally Paris, leading me back home on the Eurostar. There have been so many incredible experiences on these two journeys, and I'm sure it will take me some time to process all of the positive things that I've gained. But visiting the different communities, seeing those journeys retraced, meeting some of the very people that have been instrumental in forming the faith of members of my own congregation, and seeing the potential and opportunity for further engagement has inspired me and renewed my enthusiasm to pursue values of compassion, hospitality, prayer and inclusion in my ministry. And hopefully it's inspired some of you too.